Hello everybody, my name is Giorgio Cattolico and I will be taking you through a quick demonstration of DocToHelp. But first, I would like to start off by going through a quick slide deck just to introduce some of the DocToHelp features and some of the concepts behind it. So let's go ahead and jump in. So first, what is DocToHelp? Well, DocToHelp is our solution for multi-channel publishing and content management, and it uses Microsoft Word. So it's great because we use Microsoft Word as an authoring environment, which is nice because we're already using a tool that we're familiar with. This way we don't have to learn a completely new software. DocToHelp extends what we're generally used to in Word by adding on additional capabilities and transforming it. Meaning we could take that Word document and create an online interface from it. If we needed the user to be able to go to a searchable HTML5 site, for example, or a compiled Windows help file, they will be able to access one from a web browser. And with some of the single sourcing capabilities, it helps end some of the content duplication that could happen with Word. So DocToHelp is going to appeal to a lot of users or audiences. Now, whether you're in training or support where you need to create task-oriented instructions, or if you're in HR and you need to create online policies and procedures, or if you're a technical writer that needs to create documentation or user manuals, we could use DocToHelp for various reasons and purposes. Now, one way I would like to position DocToHelp is using an example that we're all familiar with, which is, of course, Microsoft Word. So let's say you're tasked by your boss to create a training manual, and you were using Word to do that. So easy enough, you go ahead and type that manual. But then a few months later, you need to create additional manuals, specifically for those management and for those hourly employees. Now what you would do here, if you were still using Word, is that you would create 2 additional copies of that Word document and then make your small changes in each document to tailor for its respective audience. But let's fast forward a few months again. Now we need to create even more specific versions, specifically for the San Francisco and for the New York locations, where some small things have to change, like dates, addresses, and times. But you would learn that those small changes in your documents require you to have multiple versions that you need to manage and handle, like what you're seeing here. Now, if there's ever a time where you need to make a change to a policy or procedure that's common across all of these Word documents, you would find yourself opening up every single Word document and making that same change over and over and over again. Now, in DocToHelp, we want to stay away from that. We want to make it so if there are any changes, we could focus on the left side of the diagram and allow DocToHelp to be responsible for creating different versions of our documentation. And this next slide here helps outline how we do that. So the way that we do that is through what's called single sourcing. In my example, I have my source Word document, and maybe I need to create a user manual for 3 different audiences or outputs. So I have my master source Word document. And say in my example, I need to create a beginner, an intermediate, and advanced user guide for a software. So again, 3 different manuals, but going to generate from one Word file. So first, you want to type up all that content using Microsoft Word, and preferably using Word styles to change the look and feel of content, which is something I will touch upon a little bit later. But then with DocToHelp, I could apply conditional tags. So if you could say for this opening paragraph at the top, this is an opening paragraph for audience A, and I'm going to go ahead and add a color code to it, which lets us know that this content is special and this only applies to audience A. Now the second paragraph, well, that's an alternate opening paragraph, and this time it's unique to audience B. So it gets a different color code to let me know that it's special. And then maybe for the next 2 paragraphs, well, these are going to be common for everyone, so I'm going to go ahead and leave these alone. And while for this last paragraph, this is going to be content that I only want to appear when I produce my advanced PDF manual. So this means whenever I produce anything that's going to be browser-based, we don't want this content to be presented. So we flag whatever content we need for an audience or output with conditional tags. Now the next step is to decide what to do with all that tag content using our targets, which are the outputs that we're generating from DocToHelp. So I'm going to have 3 targets in my example: a beginner, an intermediate, and advanced target. Now in my targets, I'm going to use some rules, such as which conditions I'm going to use in each target. Now in our target, we're also going to be defining what type of output we're generating as well. So in that beginner target, I could say that I want this to be a responsive HTML5 output, so users could access this on a mobile phone. My intermediate target, this is going to be an online help viewed through a desktop browser. And my advanced target is going to be a PDF guide. So again, the goal is to have one piece of information and produce different outputs from a single Word file. Now this next slide that I have here helps outline the Doc2Help workflow. So Doc2Help actually consists of two components working together. And the first component is Word, where we're going to go ahead and author our content. Now the second component is the add-in that contains all of the Doc2Help functionality. Now these components that are working together is what allows us to manage our document library and targets. Also, these two components is what allows us to generate HTML5 content, print-based content, and if you need it, the old compiles Windows help. But that concludes the slide deck portion. Now I would like to go ahead and switch gears and head into the Doc2Help interface. So Doc2Help uses Microsoft Word as the authoring interface, but there's going to be 3 additional ribbons after you install Doc2Help. So these are all going to be added to Word, which includes the Doc2Help ribbon, the Target ribbon, and the Project ribbon. So this is going to be a section where we can manage our Doc2Help project. What we're going to do is select this Project Panel ribbon, which may already be open when you first open a Word document after installing Doc2Help. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to peek and oversee the documents that we have associated with this project. Now, all the documents that we have added here will allow us to create a single output. So the Documents pane is my project's document library, and this document library can grow. Now, if I had content from R&D, I could add that. If I have docs from accounting, I could import those in as well. So if there are any documents on my computer, I could bring those in. If we have any documents that are in our SharePoint library and we would like to import those, we could bring those in as well. However, these documents will never be actually handed to the customer. These are going to be our source files that we're going to be using to create an output. Now that output, whether it's print or online, will then be viewed by your readers. Moving down here into the contents pane, this is where we're going to glue our contents together. And this is where we're constructing how our users are going to see our content. Now, if this is empty, the first thing that we're going to have to do here is build. Now, I've already built mine, so that's why we could see our headings. So this will take our heading levels from our Word document and display them here. However, if you ever needed to move these headings around, you could. Like, for example, if I wanted to make this topic at the beginning for our online outputs, we could go ahead and move these around. We could also use this to take us through our Word documents as well. And it's also handy if we wanted to link to other sections. Like, for example, if I wanted to make this Madcap software text link to this topic, I could do that. Now, moving down here, there's also the index and groups and related topics to add additional navigation and group topics together to display at the end of the page. So we could say something like, hey, here's some additional topics that relate to the one that you're currently looking at. Now again, those topics are going to be broken down based on your heading levels that you have here in your Word documents. So speaking on heading levels, you want to make sure that your heading levels are going to be applied in your Word documents because they're going to be super important. Now what I mean by heading styles is like if we click on this Getting Started topic, and let me go to the Home ribbon, you'll notice that there's going to be a heading 1 applied to this piece of text. Now this is going to be really important because going into something like a web interface, we don't want a long Word document on a web page. We want to break this down into individual topics to make it easier. Now if you're not familiar with styles, make sure to look them up and apply them into your Word documents. Now one of the tabs that I did skip over are the Variables tab. So we'll go ahead and segue into that. So in Word, I'll click on the Doc2Help tab, where we're going to manage our variables as well as other Doc2Help specific functions. Now, there's 2 single sourcing features that I like to jump into, conditional text and variables. And you may want to consider these if you're not using Doc2Help for single sourcing immediately, but I'll show you how these are going to be useful. Now, if you look up here, I actually have a variable, which is indicated by this orange text. Now, I made the variables orange in my project so it could stand out from the rest of the text. You could, of course, make this a different color if you wanted to. But variables are going to be for short bits of text that are going to be changing in your documents or just going to be changing in the future. This one that I have here specifically is my product name variable, and my product name is called FictionSoft. Now, the reason that I have these variables throughout my documents is that maybe our product name may not be FictionSoft in the future, and I need to change that. So instead of having to manually update this across all of my different Word documents, we could go ahead and use a variable instead. So let's say our product name is no longer FictionSoft. I'll go into my variables, select that product name variable, click Modify Variable, and then I'll update it with our new definition. So let's say our new product name is DocToHelp. Now with some more advanced controls, we could actually change the display of our variables to change by our different platforms or per target. So if we have several definitions, we would go ahead and do that. But we'll stick with one definition right now and just change it to DocToHelp. Now, as I close this, we won't see anything changed right now, but when we build it, we'll actually see it applied in all instances. And also here in the variables, you see that variables can be added for multiple reasons, like a company name, a phone number, a copyright, or an address. So these variables beat using that find and replace function and really come into play when you have multiple Word documents that you're working with. So updates to those are going to be really easy to make. Now the next feature that I'd like to talk about are conditions. So we talked about this a little bit earlier during our slides, but we'll move down here and let's say we have our list. We think that this type login information, this is going to be too basic and too simple for my advanced users. So I feel like this should only show up if I'm making a beginner manual. So we'll go ahead and tag this for our beginner manual. Now, as I select OK and add my condition, DocToHelp adds a comment and lets us know that this should only show up again for our beginner manual. But we applied some of those print-based features to our content. So let's go ahead and build our target. Now I'll select Rebuild, and we'll be building our advanced manual. So again, I'm taking these Word documents that I had, and we're building a single Word document. Now, a common question that I get is, what's the difference between this build and rebuild button here? Well, when I select rebuild, this actually clears a temporary folder compared to a normal build and actually builds the entire project. So this may be helpful if you make changes to the project settings, like those variables that we changed earlier. We want this to display as DocToHelp instead of FictionSoft. But we'll go ahead and wait for this build to finish up here. When this is done, we could go ahead and select yes. And we have our Word document Word document output that we produced. So let me go ahead and minimize this a little bit. So showing some of those variables, as you could see here, it did update. It no longer says FictionSoft, it now says DocToHelp, which we just applied. And scrolling down into our list here that we conditioned out, you'll notice that that type login information isn't showing up because we built our advanced manual. It would only show up for our beginner manual. And although we conditioned out in the middle of a list here, DocToHelp did keep things nice and neat with those list numbers. It didn't jump out of order, and we didn't have to go back and fix anything. It did all of that for us. Now, another thing that you may be noticing is that some of the colors are going to be different between our output and our source documents here. So this is actually due to our target templates. Now, our target templates in DocToHelp are going to be used to give all of our documents a unified look, even if their styles look different from document to document. So these are going to be found in the target ribbon here. Now, This concept may already be familiar to those that use Word, but once we have our target template selected, when we build all of our content, it'll pass through our target templates so that all of our content has a unified look across the board. Now, so far, the features that I've showed you will work whether or not you'll be creating a print or web-based output. However, these next three features are going to be for web only. Now, these features really break the mold if you're just using Microsoft Word. And let me go ahead and close this pane here. So the next feature that I'd like to talk about here is multimedia. So if we want to insert like a video into our project, I would go up here to the Doc to Help ribbon. This would control all of our Doc to Help functionality, as I mentioned earlier. So I'll select the multimedia option. Now, if we had any videos that are on our computer, we could select them here. We support anything from Windows Media Player, Flash movie files, QuickTime Movie, HTML files, HTML5 movie files. But let me cancel this. And let's say we wanted to insert a YouTube or Vimeo video. All we would have to do is insert our URL. We'll get some additional controls here that could control the look of our video. We could change like the progress bar color. We could select if our videos to autoplay once we navigate to it. But we'll just leave everything as default. We'll select OK. And then Doc to Help automatically adds a condition saying that, hey, this is only to show up for our online outputs. We don't want this to show up for our print-based outputs and have all this URL displaying. But let me go ahead and save. Now, the next feature that I talk about are dropdowns. So dropdowns, what they're going to be helpful for is that it helps layer information. So in Word, we're usually used to long linear format, but on a web page, end users don't want to see big blocks of text. Instead, we could create collapsible blocks or sections. So to do that, all I have to do is highlight that block of text that I would like to make into a drop-down or collapsible section. Head up to the Doc to Help ribbon and select collapsible section. I'll select OK. And I'll do that for the rest of the content that's going to be here on the page. And we'll show what this looks like once we build our output. Okay, and the next feature that I talk about are image maps. So image maps are going to be used under those cases that we want to make our image clickable so that I could do something. So we're going to make it so that if I click on this lost your password section, it actually opens up our lost your password and topic and directs us there. So I'll select my image, select image map editor. Then I'll go ahead and draw my hotspot. So I want to make this section clickable. I'll link this to our lost your password topic. I'll even rename this. Then I'll select OK. Make sure we save our content. But once we have those options configured, those features implemented, we could go ahead and build our NetHelp output, show you what some of these online outputs look like. So I'll go ahead and go to the target ribbon. I'll change my active target to my NetHelp output. Then I'll select rebuild again. Now, when we built our target earlier, I didn't talk about the Doc to Help pane, but when our targets are building, it'll open up there in the Doc to Help pane at the bottom, which allows us to see the progress of our build. Additionally, we could even view the errors here and unresolved links because Doc to Help actually scans for broken links while it's building, and it would let you know here. But let's go ahead and wait for this build to finish up. It looks like it's finishing up here. All right, and let's go ahead and view that output. So again, we took those Word documents and now we built our online output in addition to that PDF or that Word output that we just produced. So some features that you could have for your NetHelp output, you have a built-in search that's already here for you. I'll type in the word topic. It'll let us know all the topics that are that contained that word that we're searching for. We have some navigation buttons right here at the top. We could use this to navigate throughout our content. Additionally, we could also print, add an email, add some social media like some Twitter or Facebook accounts. If your users like any of the topics that you're reading on, they find it important, they could actually favorite or bookmark or favorite it. The topic is going to be added here if they like it. Of course, all these social media buttons can be disabled whenever you want as well. We'll go ahead and bring over our output. So again, we took those Word documents, and in addition to that print-based output that we just made, that advanced user guide, we just made an online output from those same set of Word documents. Now, this NetHelp output, this is all straight out of the box. We didn't All right, so this is going to be the NetHelp output that we just produced. Again, we took those Word documents from Doc2Help, and now we produced our online output. In addition to that Word output, that print-based output that we just made earlier. Now, some features that we could have for your NetHelp-based outputs are you could have a search that's configured for you automatically. We could search through our topics for any keywords. For example, it brought us to this topic. You could have some social media buttons right here at the top. If you wanted to go ahead and link your email, your Twitter, your Facebook. If any users like your topics and they would like to favorite that, they could select that option. It'll be added to your favorites here. Additionally, they could use these directional buttons to navigate throughout your topics as well. And of course, all of these buttons right here can be disabled. Now going to some of those functions that we added earlier. Right here, we have our image map. I'll click on that option or that piece. So I'll bring over that NetHelp output that we just generated. Now again, we took those Word documents, and now in addition to that print-based output that we created earlier, that advanced user guide, we now created a NetHelp output. Now some features that you could have for your NetHelp outputs is that you could have a built-in search for you so that you could search for any keywords. It'll show you which topics are relevant to that keyword or that contain it. You could have some social media buttons right here at the top if you wanted the option to print it, or add your email, Twitter, Facebook. You could even have users favorite their favorite topics so that they could easily access them from the favorites section right here. You could use these directional buttons to navigate throughout your content as well. And of course, all of these buttons can be disabled. But going to some of those features that we did add earlier in DocToHelp, we have our image map right here so that when I click on this lost my password section, it'll actually take us to that topic. We have our drop downs. And of course, we have that video that we added earlier. I can click on this and it will start playing. Now, this theme that I have here is called a responsive layout. Now, one thing that is going to be important is to, of course, control the look and feel of our outputs. And the way that we do that is through a theme editor that's actually built into DocToHelp. So I'll go back into DocToHelp, and we have our theme editor. So we could pick and choose which layout that we want. Some of them are going to have logos like what I had earlier, but I'll select our responsive here. We also have our tabs and accordion layouts. We could choose whichever styles we want. I had my light one earlier, but let's say we want to go ahead and use the green style. We could choose our theme as well. So I want the one with a logo. We could add some of our branding. We could have a favicon, so that's going to be like that icon at the top of the tab. You could go ahead and configure that. We could go add a logo as well. We could actually make that clickable. So if you wanted to use that logo, use it so that when your user clicks on it, they could take you back to the home page. Additionally, you could have it so they could take you to perhaps like your website or your knowledge base. Select next. We could make our outputs Section 508 compliant. Now, for those that need to be mindful of accessibility standards, DocToHelp also has a skip to main content function for your outputs. I'll select next, and let's go ahead and name it. Let's go ahead and name it New Theme. Select Finish. And then we could select it from our list here. So that's going to be some of the introductory features when you work with DocToHelp. Some of the single sourcing aspects that I just covered. There's going to be a lot of bells and whistles in DocToHelp that I didn't cover during this quick demo. So if you have any questions, go ahead and send them our way. Or if you want a deeper dive into DocToHelp, let us know. But thanks for listening, everybody, and have a good one.